Hello and welcome to Playback, Tier 2 World's weekly showcase of our best stories from around the globe. Coming up, Code Red for Humanity, the UN panel on climate change issues a dire warning. We take a look at some of the animal survivors of Turkey's worst wildfires in living memory. Friday marks 30 years since the first ever webpage went live. We look at how the internet has revolutionized the world. And a sayonara to the Tokyo Games as the Summer Olympics are handed over to France. We start with a major scientific declaration. The UN's most extensive report since 2013 says the climate crisis is unequivocally caused by humans. The report details how global heating is altering the natural world and how some nations are at the edge of extinction if urgent action is not taken. More from Hadia Al-Alawi.
Our planet is in distress.
A call to act while we can. Environmental activists say the UN report is sobering and alarming, but not unexpected. Australia, one of the world's largest per capita carbon emitters, has refused to commit to a target of net zero by 2050. But Prime Minister Scott Morrison says his government is prioritising investment in technology to lower emissions.
The government needs no further motivation about the need to take action. That's why we're taking it. That's why we've invested $20 billion over the next 10 years in the technology that transforms this.
The president of the upcoming COP26 climate summit in Glasgow wants world leaders to take urgent action.
The future, of course, is not yet written. The very worst of climate change is still avoidable. If we look back to Paris in 2015, world leaders got together and said that they would do everything they could to limit global temperature rises to well below 2 degrees and aiming for 1.5. And what this report shows that 1.5 degrees is still achievable, but that it is retreating and is retreating fast.
The landmark report warns the world will continue to face deadly heat waves, floods, droughts and hurricanes that will become more common and extreme. In Germany, the environment minister called for a rapid shift away from fossil fuels and for an expansion of sustainable energy.
Positive signal that it sends is that we can counteract this, and that's why it's so important that our climate protection measures stick to the worldwide 1.5 degree rule. We have to rapidly decrease the emissions worldwide in order to reach 0% emissions by 2050.
US President Joe Biden tweeted that we can't wait to tackle the climate crisis.
Good afternoon.
As Monday alone saw 202,000 hectares of forest burning in California, the second largest wildfire in the state's history. The UN report is warning the world is running out of time and must make drastic cuts to greenhouse gas emissions, and countries must work together immediately to secure the future of our planet. Hadia Al-Alawi, TRT World.
Forest fires in Turkey have killed at least 8 people, scorched large swaths of land, and damaged property. Livestock, pets, and wildfire have also been destroyed. But as Hassan Abdullah reports, with tragedy comes hope.
Pulled from the flames or rescued from burnt-out homes. These are the lucky ones, survivors of some of Turkey's worst wildfires in living memory. Now being treated for burns and shock, these animals are kept cool in air-conditioned tents. Classic music plays in the background. These vets say it's soothing and helps the healing and recovery process. Several emergency centers for animals have been set up in the country's fire-affected areas.
When the fire started, we traveled to different villages and asked people if there were any injured animals. Our veterinarians treated many animals on the spot. We brought some of serious cases here.
So far, around 400 animals have been treated at this makeshift hospital. They are perhaps the fortunate ones. We don't know how many haven't been able to make it. Authorities here say at the moment they don't have any figures on how many animals have been killed or injured in these devastating fires. The vets say some animals are in critical condition.
The most difficult cases are pregnant animals. We have to administer their drugs very carefully. Some drugs can affect the baby. Animals with burnt wings and feet are also difficult to treat.
At the moment, some 36 animals are undergoing free treatment just at this hospital in Antalya's Manavgat district. And while almost all the fires across the country are now under control, vets at this hospital will stay for as long as needed. Hassan Abdullah, TRT World, Manavgat.
It's been 30 years since the first ever webpage went live, launching a revolution that changed the world forever. It was the work of British scientist Tim Berners-Lee, the man credited with inventing the World Wide Web. Our correspondent Sarah Morris takes a look back.
Remember when logging onto the World Wide Web used to look and sound like this? Connection was far from instant, but for the earliest internet adopter, this was the reward, the first ever web page. It described Tim Berners-Lee's vision for the web, how to use it, and how powerful it could be in terms of knowledge sharing and collaboration.
It opened up a space that was just for computer scientists to ordinary people. Anybody can surf a website, anybody can make a website. And the way he made it happen was by making it free and making it simple and making it something that anybody could use.
To mark the website's 30th anniversary, the Centre for Computer History in the UK has launched an exhibition showcasing just how far technology has come in those 3 decades. Among the items on display in Cambridge are the first ever search engine and the dancing baby, one of the earliest viral videos. But the old machines are proving a bit baffling for some youngsters.
They're quite interesting, but I don't really know how to use them.
Like, I'm finding this mouse really irritating. Like, I'm used to just scrolling. It's just hard to use.
Very slow. They're a lot slower now. I don't think I could live with one now. They're just way too slow.
Yeah, you look at it and you're like squinting because it's such bad graphics. So.
But the first website also opened the way for abuses like bullying and harassment, recruiting by radical groups, hacking and ransomware attacks.
The internet has revolutionised the way we work and play, but every move we make on the web is being recorded, and that data trail that's left behind, well, it has consequences that society is yet to work out how to deal with.
Yeah, every time you use the internet, you're probably giving away a little bit of data about yourself. It might seem benign, but take that information and add it to some other information that you gave away on another site and some other information you gave away on another site. This could all be aggregated together and used to build a picture of who you are, what you like to do, and be used for any number of purposes.
Data can be exploited in many ways, but misinformation is thought to have the most widespread impact.
So we know that elections have had things happen within them that we didn't really see coming. And that was using online social media to influence people because of the things that they'd also done. So they were marketing towards a group of people that they knew could be turned one way or the other.
Glorious innovation and unintended consequences. That's the legacy of the first ever website and the 30 years of progress it's fuelled. Sarah Morris, TRT World, Cambridge.
Nowadays, the internet is a vital part of a child's education. And here in Turkey, an Istanbul-based initiative is helping to ensure rural school children have access to it. Volunteers transform old electronic devices into new computers and send them to village schools. Kübra Akkoç reports.
These computers are ready to be shipped off to new homes in rural schools across Turkey. Impact, an Istanbul-based e-waste transformation startup, has launched an initiative to support students who don't have computers or internet access, especially in rural areas.
We're capable of establishing 2 or 3 computer labs at village schools each month. Our goal is to build 100 computer labs across the country each year.
The social startup accepts donations of old electronic devices, from computers and televisions to telephones and washing machines. Impact's volunteers then restore, refurbish or recycle them.
The initiative is waging war on the digital divide in Turkey, Here, workers are taking old electronic devices and turning them into something useful. Brand new computers for students at village schools. So far, around 2,500 students across Turkey have benefited from the project.
Impact has so far set up 20 computer labs, each one fully equipped with 10 computers.
The initiative has sped up and the donation campaign is going very well since the pandemic began. As the demand for distance learning is on the rise due to the COVID crisis, people have become more aware of the importance of computers to students, so they donate more of their old electronic devices.
Founder Burak Köktürk says that electronic waste is a fast-growing global problem, with around 50 million tons produced every year. 600,000 tons of that is in Turkey, with only 2% properly disposed of or recycled. E-waste contains toxic components, heavy metals that are hazardous to the environment and human health. Impact is working hard to make sure that, rather than ending up in landfill, pre-loved electronics can be repurposed and made useful once again. Kübra Akoç, TRT World, Istanbul.
Syria is in its 10th year of a civil war that has killed hundreds of thousands and devastated the lives of millions. Refugees from the conflict are scattered around the world, many hoping to one day return to their homeland and help to rebuild. Yasmin Khatun Dawan has the story of one young man who's been inspired to help.
Aleppo-born Karim Al-Jian holds a framed photo of his role model, Dr. Abbas Khan, as he graduates as a junior doctor in the UK. Karim never met Dr. Khan, but was inspired by his selfless humanitarian work.
Seeing Abbas Khan go to Syria, this complete stranger that I've never met, who, isn't even from the country, let alone the city that my family used to live in, it really compelled me to study medicine and become someone like him.
In 2012, London Dr. Abbas Khan travelled to Syria to help victims of the country's civil war. While working as a surgeon in Aleppo, he was captured by the regime. A year later, he was killed in custody. Dr. Abbas's story changed the course of Karim's life.
It was his unwavering, unconditional, selfless support for Syrians against all odds, against, the fact that he might not come back home to his family and 2 children. It was that kind of selflessness that kind of inspired me to be someone like him one day.
Karim moved to the UK from Syria as a 6-month-old baby. As a teenager, he had planned to become a journalist, but changed his focus to medicine when he learnt about Dr. Khan. He hopes to continue his hero's legacy.
I don't want anyone to forget who he was and what he stood for and the legacy that he's left behind. I have this dream one day that I can return to Syria, not anytime soon, I imagine, and building a hospital in Dr. Khan's name in Aleppo.
Still mourning the loss of her son in Syria, Abbas Khan's mother remains immensely proud of his desire to help others.
I am happy that my son died with a good name. He died for a good cause. Say, Mummy, no, life is to help others. Life is not just to live for yourself.
Until Karim can realise his dream to leave a legacy in Syria for his hero, he's working hard to raise money for charitable causes in his homeland and advocate for medical workers in war zones. Yasmin Khatun Dawan, TRT World, London.
Monday was the International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples. The UN declared the day to raise awareness and protect the rights of Indigenous communities. As Adal Halim reports, revelations in Canada show just how badly such protections are needed.
Recent discoveries at former residential schools have forced Canadians to confront heinous crimes committed against their Indigenous people. The bodies of more than 1,300 Indigenous school children have been found in unmarked graves over the past 3 months. They've become a stark reminder of a 120-year-long government policy to separate Indigenous children from their parents and send them to residential schools. Most of them are run by churches and many of their students suffered physical, emotional, and sexual abuse.
The residential schools were specifically built to take the Indian out of us, to take away our language, culture, and traditions.
It's believed thousands of children died in the schools, their bodies were rarely returned home, their parents seldom notified. Many were buried in neglected graves.
Canada must acknowledge the truth, but we must also understand the truth. Even as Canadians from coast to coast to coast are shaking their heads and feeling guilty and terrible about the shameful past that we are coming to grips with as a nation.
Indigenous people around the world have been marginalized and discriminated against throughout history. Today, their population numbers 46 million across 90 countries, and they continue to struggle to achieve equality. According to the UN, Indigenous people are nearly 3 times more likely to live in extreme poverty than non-Indigenous people. Although Indigenous people account for 6% of the world population, they make up 19% of those living in extreme poverty. 47% of working Indigenous people have no education, compared with 17% of their non-Indigenous counterparts. In Canada, Indigenous leader and advocate Mary Simon recently became Governor General.
Swear that you will be faithful.
The appointment made her the first Indigenous person to serve as the official representative of the British monarch in Canada. But she says much more needs to be done.
We are reminded daily that even though diversity is a core Canadian value, our country must do more to respect all languages, cultures, ethnicities, religions, and way of living.
For Indigenous Canadians, it's time to tell the truth about what happened at its residential schools and find a way to achieve a more just future. Adil Halim, TRT World.
Well, in China, a police investigation has been launched into allegations of sexual assault at e-commerce giant Alibaba. A female employee at the company alleges that her manager and a client sexually assaulted her while on a business trip to eastern China. Alibaba says the manager in question has been fired and that it's cooperating fully with the investigation. Well, whether it's swallowing raw eggs for breakfast or demolishing whole chicken breasts for dinner, the images many of us have of an elite athlete's diet includes protein loading on meat and dairy 3 times a day. But more and more sportswomen and men are nowadays relying on plant-based food for their nutritional needs. TRT World Health correspondent Nicola Hill asks whether veganism is the way forward, not just for athletes, but for all of us.
Former Turkish Finn swimming champion Özkan Esen tried a variety of recommended diets whilst competing in World and European Championships. He's now a lecturer in sports nutrition in the UK and says there's no scientific evidence proving either the advantage or disadvantage of a vegan diet for athletes. In fact, when it comes to food trends, he's a cynic.
Not so long time ago, 3, maximum 5 years ago, what was the best diet for athletes? Paleo diet. Paleo diet used to say, don't eat vegetables, just go with the meat.
Nowadays, it's the opposite. But can a plant-based diet provide all the necessary nutrients for performance and muscle recovery? Oz says yes, but it's all down to portion size.
To get enough essential amino acids for their recovery, they need to eat a little bit more. That's all. Just specifically for protein and particularly essential amino acids. But nutrient-wise, there is no problem. They will get the same amount.
However, he adds larger portions can mean more calories and potential weight gain, which can affect certain sports. Vegan chef and health coach Karina Levi says a plant-based diet is usually high in antioxidants, which reduce inflammation and aid recovery. She says replacing meat protein is simple.
People often look at the bodybuilders who are eating, like consuming huge amounts of tuna, huge amounts of chicken. It's like, well, where are you going to get your protein from? Most vegetables have some protein in, but nuts and legumes and beans, pulses, These are really good sources of protein, and you have quite a variety of food choices that you can actually select.
Number one tennis player Novak Djokovic claims veganism has helped with his success, and endorsements from him and the likes of Lewis Hamilton has persuaded many to give up meat and dairy. But Oz Essen says until there are scientific trials proving its benefits, his advice to athletes is to follow whichever balanced diet works for them. Nicola Hill, TRT World, London.
Organizers say Tokyo 2020 was the most eco-friendly Olympics to date. From cardboard beds to medals made from recycled electronics, sustainability was a key theme at this year's Games. And it may set a standard for future tournaments, as Mayu Yoshida explains.
It's not just about the color of the medals at these Olympics. Tokyo 2020 has pledged to become the greenest Games in history. Hydrogen-powered cars roam the streets of the Olympic Village. The beds athletes sleep on are made of cardboard. And the Olympic cauldron is powered by hydrogen gas. It's all part of a plan to use as many recycled products as possible and to repurpose the items once the tournament is over.
So sustainability since 2015 is at the very heart of all the discussions we have with future hosts. So this is true already for the edition of the Games which are being organized. But it will be even more the case in the future as we continue to set the bar high.
Even the medals are made from more than 6 million old phones and roughly 78,000 tons of outdated computers and other electronic waste. Well, e-waste is a big problem, but this trash could be another person's treasure. It's called urban mining, a process in which discarded metals are processed for reuse. Tokyo 2020 organizers saw this as an opportunity and asked residents to donate their old gadgets. The company behind the project says a resource-poor country like Japan needs to retrieve important materials.
It's a global agenda, especially for industrialized nations, to retrieve and reutilize precious metals like gold, silver, and bronze. We're passing on the baton to future host cities.
After the Games, the athletes' village will be turned into condos, schools, and shopping malls. Japan wants to make it a hydrogen-powered town, a new model for sustainable urban development. Organizers estimate these Games will generate nearly 3 million tons of carbon emissions, but that will be offset through credits donated by Japanese businesses. Final emissions figures will be announced after the Games.
We were able to collect enough credits to offset and actually go beyond carbon neutrality for the amount of emissions that the Tokyo 2020 Games have generated.
Tokyo could set the standard for future host cities. And through these sustainability efforts, at future Olympics, perhaps green could be just as important as gold. Mayu Yoshida, TRT World, Tokyo.
The second last day of the Games was one of Turkey's most successful. On Saturday, Busenas Sürmeneli beat China's Gu Hong in the welterweight final, claiming the team's second gold medal in Tokyo. On the same day, Busenas Çakıroğlu took silver, also in women's boxing, and Uğur Aktaş took bronze in men's karate. The 13 medals won in total is the highest ever number for the country in the 23 Olympic Games its athletes have competed in so far. And with that, the Tokyo Summer Olympic Games are over. The U.S. took home the most gold medals once again, followed by China and Japan. The event took place largely behind closed doors without spectators, and athletes were barred from venturing outside the Olympic Village. The Olympic flame is now in France, where Paris will host the 2024 edition. And a historic moment in football. Lionel Messi has been officially unveiled as a PSG player. The Argentinian superstar has agreed for a 2-year deal with the French club, earning him a staggering $41 million a year. Messi spent 21 years with Barcelona, where he won a club record 34 trophies. He was expected to extend his time at the club by signing a new 5-year contract, but says he left because of what the club has described as financial and structural obstacles. The African elephant is critically endangered. That's according to the International Union for Conservation of Nature. The number of African forest elephants has fallen by more than 86% in the last 30 years. The organization says the decline is due to a significant increase in poaching. Africa currently counts more than 400,000 elephants. Thursday has marked World Elephant Day to honor elephants and to spread awareness about the critical threats they face. Well, that rounds up your week of news here on Playback. We leave you with pictures of a herd of 14 wild elephants seen while heading home to the south. They made headlines wandering for 500 kilometers in southwestern China. Stay tuned to TRT World for the latest stories.